I'm currently in Seattle, Washington on a work trip. My job's actually kind of cool where sometimes I get to fly to different cities to work on projects. But just because I'm on a work trip doesn't mean that I stop working on my music. And I thought it would actually be a really good idea for me to talk about 5 practical tips for pursuing your passion while working a 9-to-5. Now, like I said, I do music, but this can apply to any creative passion that you are doing, whether it's music or photography, so on and so forth. So these 5 tips are not gonna be ranked in any specific order. It's more gonna be about things that I personally do that make me a much better full-time artist with a 9-to-5. But before we get any further into this, I have to actually get some of the things done that I need to do for my music. I have a new single that's gonna be coming out in March, and I need to get some planning done around the marketing and some other things with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick, and then we'll come back and do the first tip. Number 1, get organized. I feel like sometimes creative people are really bad at being organized. And as a result, it gets, at least in my opinion, really hard to get things done. Something that I've started to notice is that it's actually a lot easier for me to be creative if I have taken time to clean my workspace. Not sure if that's just because I'm getting older or whatever, but it's been very beneficial to me. It doesn't even just stop there. It can even come down to your creative process. If you have an organized system for how you get things done, that can actually make it a lot easier for you when you do sit down to create. So for me, I've done things like have a very strategic file organization system where as I'm working on a song, I will actually put the date that I'm working on it, and if I do multiple revisions to it as I bounce out a version of the song, I'll put V1, V2, V3, so on and so forth. And I actually use the format of year, month, day, because I've found that it actually makes the computer organize your files in a quick and easy way to find them, which helps me out a lot. Something else that I would recommend is actually scheduling out time to work on the actual organization process that you're going to use. Honestly, sometimes you just need to plan out some time to sit down and do the mundane tasks so that the next time you sit down, you don't have to do them. So it's actually 10:30 here, which means it's 1:30 at home. So I need to go ahead and get some sleep for tomorrow because I also have to wake up early again. So when I get a break in my schedule tomorrow, I'm gonna go ahead and give tip number 2. So I'm in the backseat of the rental car that my company got. My coworkers went inside to do some stuff, and I decided to stay out here and do this instead. So tip number 2 is essentially use technology to your advantage. There's plenty of apps, software, and even devices that you can use that will actually make your job as a creative a lot easier. So for example, I used ChatGTP for this video to get my mind going about some good ideas of tips that I could provide you with. A lot of them were not good, but it gave me the ability to think about what was better than what it was giving me. And going even further than that, you can also start to step into the world of productivity with technology, which makes your process a lot easier. I use apps like Notion to write down my ideas and my video ideas and keep track of my schedule for putting out content. Overall, there's an endless world of opportunity with technology to make your life easier as a creative. It's all about figuring out how it can help improve your workflow and your creative process. My coworkers are probably coming back any second, and I don't want them to be confused about why I'm talking to a camera. So I'm gonna go ahead and go, and we'll do tip 3 later on today. I moved as far away from the hotel as possible because they're playing copyrighted music right now, and I want to make sure as little of it as possible gets into this video. So it's currently Wednesday and I am in San Francisco at the hotel outside by the pool, hoping that it doesn't rain on me. And I decided that now would be the best time for me to give tips 3 and 4 because I did not come back yesterday and do a tip because I was too busy. Tip number 3 is to create a routine. It's extremely hard to get anything done sometimes unless you have a routine of when you're going to do things and how you're going to do things. So that goes from how you're going to do things after you get off work, and also the routine of how you're going to put out whatever your creative passion is and share it with the world. I don't really have a good routine right now because my job is very hectic a little bit. So it's currently 11:31 Pacific time, which means it is 2:30 in the morning, my Eastern Standard Time, which is what I'm used to. Not ideal. But even though I don't have a routine for how I create, I do have a routine for how I put out content. Currently, I'm working with a every other week system for my YouTube videos. Also working on a every other month system for my music. I will have a new single coming out in March, which pre-save link in the bio. And what that does for me is even if I don't have a consistent schedule for when or how I'm going to work on my passion, I know I have a deadline I need to hit. So I'm going to make sure I find time in my schedule to go ahead and create whatever it is I need to create. Hence it being 2:30 in the morning and me recording a YouTube video. And moving on to tip number 4, learn to say no. So this is something that I am just now discovering. It's crazy what this does for you, but I love it. If you look at how I operated in the past, I had a very, very, very hard time saying no. So what that led to was a lack of time for me to work on my passions for myself. I was putting a lot of time into other people's passions and other people's goals, but not as much into mine. And what that led to was me not feeling like I was progressing at the pace that I wanted to. But recently, as of late last year, early this year, I decided that I was going to prioritize myself and do that by learning to say no. I had to cut off a few things that I was doing for other people. And what that did for me was give me time to work on my own creative passions, like my YouTube channel and also my music. And so far, YouTube's been a little shaky, still working on that, but my music has been going the greatest it's ever been. And what's actually probably about to happen after this is I'm about to utilize the spaces around me and shoot a music video. I don't know why I'm talking in this tone like I'm a broadcaster, but I'm doing it now. So I'm just gonna commit to the bit and keep it going. Anyways, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and shoot that music video and then go to bed because I actually need to be up at like 4 in the morning because I have a flight that leaves at 8:30 and I need to get to the airport on time, which is an hour away. So either at the airport or when I land or when I'm back in Columbus or whatever, I'm gonna go ahead and give the 5th and final tip that I have for you for pursuing your passion while working a 9 to 5.
What up, Liz?
Okay, so I'm currently back at my parents' house in Columbus, Ohio, visiting. It's been a very crazy week, but I still need to get this video done. So with that being said, let's get into the 5th tip, and that is to set realistic expectations. Sometimes as a creative, it can be really, really easy to want to take on the world and set really high goals for yourself. And this is something that I personally did when I made this transition into viewing myself as a full-time artist with a 9 to 5. I made a 7 to 8 page outline of what I wanted this year to look like for my music. And it was trying to give myself a little bit of wiggle room with things changing and so on and so forth, but I had a very basic outline of what I wanted to happen. But as I was writing this, in the back of my mind, I had this quote from Mike Tyson. Like I care about boxing. But essentially the quote was, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." And this would play repeatedly in the back of my mind as I was trying to make these detailed plans of what I wanted to do this year. And I knew as soon as I hit go on my plans and started executing everything that something was gonna go wrong and I was going to be derailed from my plans. I was always wondering, what am I gonna do when that happens? Because it wasn't an if, it was a when. I just knew it was gonna happen at some point in time. And lo and behold, the last week of January, I get the flu and I'm out for like 2 weeks trying to recover from that. And it just messes up the flow of everything that I wanted to do in the first few months of the year. But because I had been thinking about that Mike Tyson quote, I was like, okay, this is when I get punched in the face. So now it's time for me to regroup and figure out where I'm gonna go from here. What I decided I need to do was give myself grace and room to recover from the flu and just be willing to change my plans as things change in my life. This is essentially why I treat my goals like a roadmap, because I realize that there are gonna be roadblocks in the way, there are gonna be detours I have to take, there's gonna be times I have to stop and like regroup. And being aware that even though I don't know what it is, something is gonna happen that's going to change my plans makes it where I have a lot more realistic expectations for how this year is gonna go. And I'm much more willing to forgive myself when something that I wanted to do at a specific time doesn't happen. So yeah, those are my 5 tips for pursuing your passion while working a 9 to 5. Like I said, this was not a top 5 list. There's plenty of more tips that could be given in regards to this subject. And if you have one, I'd really like to hear from you, so you can put that in the comments below. I really want to get conversation going about this subject because I think that we can all help each other with giving useful tips about how to manage doing something that's like a full-time job while you have a full-time job. And if you haven't watched it, here's my last video on the hardest part about being a creative. I'll catch you in the next one.